Hope you're all able to get as much breakfast. There's more out there by all means. Before we get into the program, I'm going to have Dawn come up and give us a few words about WITS that's going on right now.
I'm Don Lanhart. I'm the co-chairman. Excuse me. I'm a co-chairman of the WITS show. Gene Sharp is the other co-chairman. The WITS show is made up of two organizations. One is a group of manufacturing engineers, and then there's the group that's the Purchasing Association. The show was started in 1974 back in the Round Park, and we have it every 2 years. It's run all by volunteers except for one office lady. And then any excess revenue we have at the end of the show is divided between the two groups, and that's how we fund scholarships and help per down to the junior high, robotics, rocketry, anything that has to do with manufacturing and engineering on our side, and on their side, they do a lot of this help with supply management and scholarships in that regard. The show this year, we have it's either 4 or 6 empty booths. So it's real close. When we started making the decision a year ago, we had no idea how it all going to turn out. But the last 3 shows, we've basically been sold out. So it's been real good. So I'm glad you could come, go down and enjoy. There's people from all over. Some of our European exhibitors could not come this year. Same way with, we usually have some people from Asia also, but that's not, but we've got them from all over. So enjoy. The show opens at 9 o'clock this morning. It'll run also tomorrow, starting at 9 o'clock. It closes today at 6. Tomorrow it closes at 4. So then it'll be 2 years before it happens again. So, if we have a building. So we're going to
Thank you, Don. All right, everyone. Yes, I hope you get time today to walk the show. It is impressive. So moving on, we're going to thank our proud sponsors. And first we have Kansas Manufacturing Solutions. And I'm going to have Dave come up and speak a few words.
Thank you, Ethan. My name is Dave Stein. I'm the Director of Sales for Kansas Manufacturing Solutions. We are advisors to manufacturers in the state of Kansas. We work all over the state of Kansas. So no matter where you're located, we can help you, we can reach you. We are in business to help manufacturers compete and grow. That is our mission. And we work typically with small to medium-sized manufacturers. We'll work with anybody. We have been around for almost 30 years, and up until 2 years ago, we were known as MAMTech. So if you remember the name MAMTech and maybe had worked with us when we were MAMTech, we're the same, but we're a better organization now, but we're now Kansas Manufacturing Solutions. And we typically work in really about 5 competency areas. Typically, we work with a lot of lean or continuous improvement type work, do a lot of work with quality and management, implementation. We do a lot of work with workforce development, which everybody's struggling with, or most of you are struggling with right now. We also do a lot of work with sustainability. So if you're looking to upgrade facilities or HVAC or lighting or fixtures, things like that, we do a lot of work in that area. And then the last area that we do a lot of work is what we call business optimization. So if you're looking for systems or processes or ways to make your business or your operation run more smoothly, we do a lot of work in that area. I have a brand new team, so we've got great coverage in the state, and I want to introduce some of my guys here. So I've got William Best, who is in Sedgwick County here in Wichita and covers 4 counties here in South Central Kansas. I've got Jeff Glimpse, who is in central Kansas, covers the central part of the state. And I've got Scott Stewart, who is in the southeast part of the state. So we do have somebody who covers western Kansas. They're not here, but we'd love to have you come by our booth. We're really excited to be a part of this year. We're booth 34 on the far north wall, south wall. So these guys keep me in line, as you can tell. So we're in the south wall, and we're excited to be part of this, and we're excited to be a proud sponsor of this panel, this very esteemed panel. And I'm really one of the only things in between, getting between you and hearing this distinguished panel. So thank you for attending. Thank you for being part of this, and hopefully see you at our booth or around the trade show in the next day or two. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. So next, we will allow our other proud sponsor, Fairloy. We're going to have the owner, Mark Susi, come up and speak a few words as well.
Thanks, Ethan. My name is Mark Susi, and I'm the president and owner of Fairloy. I'm here today with our vice president of sales, John Rocky. John, you want to stand up? Fairloy is a gray and ductile iron foundry. We're located in North Wichita, just off of Broadway and 29th Street. We are a job shop, so we make about 1,000 different parts to about 50 different customers. I'm going to kind of keep it short here, but over the last 4 years, we've grown over 220% on revenue. And so I thought it'd be a great opportunity to sponsor this. So it's up to you guys. Thanks.
All right, so next I would like to introduce one of our own, Ron Weddle, who has been with the WMA, is it 44 years. But Ron has an extensive background in manufacturing, 42 years at Cessna, and he's going to be our moderator today. So I'm going to hand it off to him to then take on the panel.
Okay, we do have, and you'll see there's 4 gentlemen up there. Bryce Turner called me yesterday, and he had 2 of his employees exposing to COVID. He got a quick test yesterday, and he was positive last night. So he sends his condolences. Bryce, I've known for years. I knew his dad, Jeff, and very fine young man in manufacturing. So we'll wish him well as he recovers. Okay, our first speaker today is David May. David is owner of Trinity Precision and Caritas, and I know I'd slaughter that one. David has been in manufacturing for over 24 years. He started his career as a parts expediter for Cessna Aircraft, and I know what that's all about. And he moved through the supply chain organization. He transitioned to Weaver Manufacturing, which is a local machine shop, developing strategic business practices. At Weaver, he became vice president and general manager, helping with 2 successful acquisitions. Today, he is the owner, as I said, of Trinity Precision and Caritas. Trinity Precision is focused on complex aerospace structural machine parts and assemblies, serving commercial, defense, and general aviation market. He recently formed a Caritas to help with specific automation goals and products for manufacturing and engineering. Both companies focus on developing strong teams and create processes that deliver consistent product. Please welcome David. He's been married to his wife, Margaret, and they have 7 children. One thing I'll say about David, first in his mind is people. And that's the way he runs his business. So David, please come up.
So I heard the words esteemed and no pressure as well. So I will do my best to open up the panel. And then we've got some very, very good speakers coming up. So definitely appreciate the opportunity, Ron, Nathan, for coming and being able to just share a few thoughts about the next year and kind of where we are coming from. We're a couple small businesses. In total, we've got close to 70 employees and all here in the local area. So my perspective is always very much from that vein. When I was thinking about how to approach kind of these topics, I really was thinking about kind of the last year and a half and a short story that was shared with me about this gentleman who was up on a cliff that he had hiked up onto and was looking out over the cliff in the valley, and he was seeing the sunset and kind of got a little careless as he was appreciating the sunset and fell over the side of the cliff. And as he fell down, he grabbed onto this limb that would just happen to be about halfway down. And there's all these sharp rocks and everything else below. And if he fell any further, he'd probably go to his doom. And he looked up and he starts yelling. He says, "Is there anybody up there?" And he hears silence and nothing. So he keeps yelling. He says, "Anybody up there?" And pretty soon there's this big cloud that comes over, and the cloud says, "David," we'll just say it's David. "David," he said, "this is God." He said, "Trust me, and I let go and I'll take care of you. You won't fall, you won't come to your harm." The man looks down, he looks back up and he says, "Is there anybody else up there?" So I share that because I think the last year and a half have very much been, in the future, very much have been somewhat of a roller coaster for all of us. We have a lot of opportunities in front of us. There's a lot of challenges. And when we think about the challenges that we have in front of us, we always kind of focus, as Ron said, we start with people. We got people, process, and principle as our tagline for Trinity Precision. From the people perspective, I think I'd share with everybody in here that there is definitely a shortage. The demand is higher in the market than what is available for whatever reason. And there's a lot of different reasons I think that are out there. But when we start looking, as we're starting to grow back out of what 2020 did and the downturn in aerospace, as that starts to ramp back up, people is a big challenge. And I think that we look at it in a little bit different way. We've been trying to really focus on people from day one when we started in 2014. And it really is a cultural thing. So when we think about our strategies, it's really on how we recruit and how we retain, but it's always from a cultural perspective. And then we obviously have to look at benefits as well, because it will tell you, and if you read any of the, any literature, any of the studies that are out there, the biggest thing that people will leave is they will leave the culture before they leave money. And they will come to a better culture than they will come chasing, a couple dollars or a paycheck. I think that the biggest challenge though that we've had is there definitely is a ramp up in terms of overall wages that are out there prevailing in the market right now. And we are working on trying to make sure that we level set, not necessarily trying to chase all those, but work in any way that we can to either balance from a benefit side or balance from a flexibility side in terms of schedule, whatever it is where we can help accommodate the needs of the team that we've got. Because I'll tell you, any challenge that we have is from manufacturing or from a company is going to be answered first with the people on the team. They're the ones that go after the process. They're the ones that identify the problems. And if you have a strong team in place, that team will work and be able to solve any of the adversity that you've got. A couple of things that we've done is we were behind on 401k matching. So even in the downturn, we started doing the matching, and we've got it ramped up over the next couple of years to be able to give some incentive for our team. From day one, we've absorbed all of our healthcare cost increases. We've used healthcare as a strategic benefit inside of our company, which is something that has been, I'm going to say, painful, but has been extremely beneficial whenever we do our customer, anytime we do our employee surveys. The team definitely very much appreciates that. In fact, we just got a renewal this last week, and for the first time in quite a while, we had single-digit increase instead of double-digit. So we were all doing kind of a happy dance. We didn't share that with the insurance company, and I hope Blue Cross isn't here today, but all is good. I think another thing that's really important also is to have clear and honest communication with your team. Because as people are looking at the uncertainty that they've got, they want to know what's happening with your company and what's happening inside of the organization. They can sense challenges, they can see problems that are happening. And quite honestly, when you have clear communication, and not just one way, but two-way communication, it's amazing not only what they learn, but it's specifically what the leadership team will learn as well. And you're able to move problems downfield and address them a lot faster with that open and clear communication. Not always easy, but I think something that's incredibly important. And then respect. I mean, obviously creating that culture of respect for everybody inside of the company. I always think in terms of I work with everybody that is there, not that they work for me, or that relationship. I think that's really, really important, and make sure you get to know your team. I think the biggest challenge that we are also going to have going, and we'll talk about inflation in just a minute, but wages that we have today are going to be challenged as we go forward in the next 12 months. And it's because the cost of everything is going up. So not only do we have inflation, but so do our team members. And trying to keep that in mind as we're facing the challenges that are in front of us, is that they've got families to go provide for, just like we do. And it's really incredibly important for us to keep that perspective. As I kind of segue into inflation, I know that that's a challenge, I think, for everybody. In aerospace, we've been incredibly blessed because there's a lot of aggregation for some of our main components. So our companies or our customers typically will have a set price for raw material for the most part on a majority of the product that we produce, and that price has not changed. I am hearing rumblings inside of, for anybody that's inside of aerospace, but some of the key aggregation providers are now working on renegotiating some of those contracts. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's the rumbling that I hear. But I think the biggest problem that we've got is, I'll give you a great example. We had a meeting with one of our customers that used plugs for holes inside of the chemical processing in order to be able to make sure that there's no fractures inside of those holes, because they're full size on assembly. So when we ship them, they don't do anything to the part, they put it right up on the assembly. Those little plugs are now becoming a shortage item. I mean, you're talking about something that's less than $1 that they are having problems getting for the entire industry. And this is a fairly large customer that is doing a lot of defense and civil work. And this will shut down their programs if they can't get it figured out. They're working right now to try to get those supply issues resolved. So it's going to be really interesting to see. But I think that the cost of goods and the availability of goods are going to really surprise us in all the different things that we do throughout our process, not just the main cost components that we've got. For our perspective, I mean, there's two things that we really are working on doing. One is controlling the data that we've got, the availability of it. And that is, we need visibility where there are price pressure and price inflation so we can see it. And the second is just clear, constant communication with our customers. And I think that that's going to be key as, there's volatility going up and down across the industries. So I wish I had a great answer on the inflation side, but that's how we intend to be able to go attack it. I think another challenge, especially for businesses that are kind of our size, that are, I'd say medium to small, is growth in an unpredictable market, right? So I kind of think of it, and Charlie Johnson, who former Cessna, always used to say target-rich environment. And I love using that because that's kind of what it feels like right now, is that we're in a target-rich environment with lots of opportunities that are out there. But the question is, how do you add people, equipment, buildings, when there's such uncertainty, when you don't know what's going to happen? And I think that my sense is, from talking to people in other industries, that really is kind of the case across the board, not knowing what the economy, not knowing necessarily what the market is doing. We've done a couple of things. The first is we have worked to pivot both inside of Trinity and also by forming a Caritas. So a Caritas, which we started a couple of years ago, really is aimed at helping us with some internal automation needs that we wanted to do. We formed a company, hired a gentleman who has his master's in mechanical engineering, and he's been working on a specific robotic cell that is aimed at high volume, low mix type part. I'm sorry, high mix, low volume. You can always get it backwards. So a lot of changeover. And the goal for us was to be able to increase the efficiency of that work center so we could not have to reprogram that robot every time, but create one program, which we successfully did, for literally hundreds of parts that have a variety of different sizes. So there is literally no changeover in that robotic cell, and we can run low rate type parts across that cell. Another thing that we've been doing is we've been taking, and we've got our first patent, I should say patent pending. We haven't got the number yet. And it's actually booth 52 if you want to come see us, but it's a lifting device. So something that we designed out of need and necessity. So we like to say built by manufacturers for manufacturers, because we were looking for something from a safety perspective to load onto our horizontal machines for large blocks of material. Couldn't find anything. The only solution that was out there was a vacuum system that was about $14,000, $12,000 to $14,000. So we designed something that is really straightforward and very simple. And it is a fraction of that price. It allows one operator to be able to load those blocks onto the machine. But it's taking that innovation and being able to take it out, trying to take it out to the market, which we're learning a whole bunch of new things by doing that, and really trying to create a different revenue stream that's outside of aerospace. We also have been working on trying to pivot inside for Trinity into other products, whether that be through a potential acquisition or whether that be through building a new customer base in other areas. So that's an area that we have been strongly focused on. The one thing I'd say in this environment, and it's a temptation that we really have fought, and maybe we're the only ones, which is very possible, is the tendency to want to overcommit and overgrow. And when you are working to try to grow back up to where you were before, and when you're working really hard to try to build the business back to where it was, it's easy to look at all the RFQs that you got coming in and say, oh, we can do all of that right now. We have the bandwidth to be able to support it. And we've been putting things in place to be able to handle more on our engineering side, but we still are finding ourselves saying no a lot more than we would like to, simply so we can make sure that we support our commitments. Because if you overcommit, guarantee you're going to have problems. We've all been there before, and it's going to just cause more consternation. And in this market right now, customers are more focused on performance than ever before. The other thing I think I'd offer for just consideration is the morale and the culture inside of the company. I think that's probably a huge challenge for all of us in terms of manufacturing, in terms of just business in general. And I say that because I've noticed in talking with my team that, you know, it's not necessarily what's going on inside of the business, although everybody can feel, I mean, over the last 2 years, it's been tough. I mean, it's been difficult out there, right? But they also are getting it just like we are at home. They have their own issues, their own struggles, and there is more polarization, more difficulties out there, regardless of where anybody stands on any issues. The reality is it's affecting each and every one of our employees, right? And it's really, really important, I think, for us as businesses to be able to dial in and understand what's going on inside of our individual employees and the culture as well. Because if you lose your culture and you lose the team that you've got, you're not going to be able to solve the problems that are facing us, right? And that's incredibly important. And I think for me, and I'm a small privately held business, so I can share this. My faith has been incredibly important during this time, to just be honest. I say that, you know, for leadership, it requires us to have faith. We put everything in the hands of God and just trust that we're stewards of that business. And so I think I found myself praying a heck of a lot more over the last 2 years than before. So I count that as a blessing. But it gives me great hope that, you know, as we look forward to get past the turmoil and the things that we have, is that faith and that perspective. So just to offer that up, you know, when you think about the story of the guy hanging on the the side of the cliff, and he's sitting there hanging and kind of wondering what he's going to do, I have found myself finding answers and solutions in really unconventional ways. So sometimes when somebody tells you let go and it looks like it's the wrong direction, trust your gut and have some faith, and it'll be amazing what turns out. So those are my thoughts. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to come and talk to you. Thank you.
We will have a question and answer session after we sit through all the speakers. Our next speaker is a longtime friend of mine. Brent Edmondson is Vice President of Operations, Global Supply Chain Management and Engineering at Excel Industries. He earned his executive MBA from Friends University and is certified Six Sigma Green Belt and Apex Certified Supply Chain Professional. Brent has 25 years more career, spans executive leadership positions at Cessna Aircraft and Hawker Beach Aircraft, and where he served as Vice President of Supply Chain Operations. He received his Purchasing Medal of Excellence in Supply Chain Management Award and has published numerous byline articles on industry publications. Brent joined Excel Industries in July of 2012 as Vice President of Global Supply Chain and Quality. During his tenure, the role is involved to include operations, supply chain management, and engineering. He serves also on their Executive Strategic Planning Council. Brent lives in Wichita with his wife, Deborah, of 30 years, and they have a daughter and a son. Please welcome my friend, Brent Edmondson.
Good morning. I got to say something. Saw Brad come into Cessna, what was it, 12 years ago, 13 years ago? And then David worked with him, how long ago?
Over 20.
It's pretty humbling to set up with these guys. They came in when I was at Cessna and had the opportunity to work with them, and they've been very successful in their career. A lot of great opportunities in Wichita, great place to work, families. I'm proud of both of them. I just want to say that openly. You hear a lot of bad things in companies and different things, but it's really great to see some people that do it right. So anyway, I just want to say that before I kind of give my remarks. I was kind of sitting there being moved when I was realizing I'm 56 years old. I've seen a little bit. Sometimes life will get away from you, and it's good to step back and look at it. So anyway, just wanted to say that. And I've been doing this a while. I think we're just living in very unprecedented times. The last 18 months or so probably been the hardest in my career and what we've been trying to deal with. We've seen, Excel's seen tremendous growth over the last decade. We were doing not quite 150 million a year when I came to the company. Today, we're doing north of 400 million. We could do a lot more if we had parts and people, which is the common theme you're going to hear in our discussions. But we've been real limited on what we can do. But at the same time, we got a great team at Heston. Heston's a sleepy town up north that there's a lot going on there. There's ADCO, there's us, and there's some great suppliers there. McPherson is another area that's just incredible what's going on up there. I was there 2 weeks ago, and then you hear about Salina. Wichita is a gem, but there's just a lot of stuff going on just in this metro area that honestly, I don't think most Wichita really realizes what's really happening here. And so it's a great place to work, great people. It's really cool what's going on there. You know, when I thought about what the question was, what's our challenges, what's our opportunities, you know, we could stand up here and talk for quite a while, but I kind of picked two areas. And honestly, us three guys did not compare notes this morning. So hopefully you'll pick up on some things that maybe will help you or maybe give some considerations. The first one really is the global supply chain challenges and what we're dealing with. We keep hearing from our suppliers, they have real limited capacity. It's really about having the people, but also they're having trouble even getting parts. And then on top of all that is logistics. When they get the part made, it's hard to get it to where you need to have it. And that's not just international. And you hear all the ships off the LA coast
It's also about, getting a truck to pick it up domestically and get it to you. These challenges are inbound, outbound. We're having trouble getting stuff out of the country after we build it. It goes on and on. This has been unprecedented what we've been seeing. It's been a struggle, to say the least. And the team itself is just doing a great job. They're doing everything they can do, but it's every day we walk in, we're not sure what's going to happen. It's a little hard to plan the business. I'll just be honest with you. They've also this has impacted some of our new product, development launches. But again, the team is pulled together. It's been delayed a little bit, but we're able to have it happen. But that has hurt our growth in what we're trying to do. But more importantly, our ability to really hit the daily schedule has been some serious challenges. So I'm going to talk just a minute about kind of what we're doing to kind of mitigate, these challenges and some of the risks that we're seeing. One of the things we're doing is we're doing dual sourcing. We do have some work that's coming out of China. I will tell you, 5-6 years ago, I made the decision, working with the owners, that we were going to bring a lot of the work back from Asia and bring it back into the United States. We actually brought probably about $60 million worth of statement of work and put it right back in Kansas. We worked with those suppliers from a technology standpoint. And when I say that is, I encouraged them to look at advanced machines and try to automate where they could and really lower the cost. If it's high labor content, it's really hard to bring it back to the United States and stay competitive. But when you look at the supply chain from an inventory standpoint, the cost of shipment, the time it takes to get it here, and oh boy, the quality issues we sometimes see coming over the pond, it really makes more sense to do it right here domestically, or at least in North America, because you have a lot more control over that. So we brought a lot back. So from that aspect, there's not that much that's been coming out of China for us, which was a godsend with what we're dealing with. But saying all that, our major suppliers have tier 2, tier 3 suppliers that unfortunately have been impacted, that is coming out of those parts of the world. The other thing that we did was we had some quality problems with foreign steel when I got there. And I told everybody, we're going to US steel. I want something we can rely on. And that was another good decision that we made then. So there were some things that I think was God ordained that we did that I think has helped us. I think we've weathered this a lot better than some of our competitors. I'm hearing our competitors in our industry, they're shut down for sometimes weeks at a time on a line. We are seeing impacts, sometimes days, but overall, we've done fairly well doing that. And I mentioned onshoring. We're really adopting the strategy and make it where you sell it. As you guys know, Stanley Black & Decker, we just signed a merger agreement with them here about a month ago now. And they're going to be, but we're closing on that deal here at the end of the year. We're really excited about that. They're a big corporation. They want to grow in the outdoor power equipment arena. And this is one of their major strategies they're doing as a company. In fact, they set up a Black & Decker plant just in Texas here in the last 6 months, and they're bringing a lot of work back. And you're hearing that more and more. But one of the things I'm going to get into is the people side of it, is that we're going to have the people to do what we're trying to do. One of the other things that we've been really working on is, working with advanced technologies and systems. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But a couple of my guys are actually sitting in the back. I didn't know they were going to be in the audience this morning, but they've been an integral part of what we're doing there at Excel, and it's really helping us stay competitive. One of the things we're also doing, there's a real disruption going on in our industry, and it's not just ours. You hear it every day almost on the news, but electric's coming. It's coming like a freight train, and handhelds, if you're doing trimming or different things on your turf care, you're going to see, you see that product being pretty dominant. They're getting away from gas. We're doing that on the mower side. In fact, the far right mower on the lower end is our new electric entry into the marketplace. But that takes a whole new supply chain that we currently do not have, and it's mainly coming out of Asia. So we're really trying to look at that and try to determine if we can get more U.S. content in this bill. But right now, that's pretty tough. We're also driving a lot of vertical integration. We're bringing a lot of work back in, and I'll kind of talk a little bit more about that as far as opportunities. Second area, and I thought David did a nice job talking about the people side, but hiring and retaining an hourly workforce, it's been very hard. We're competing against the US government. You can't keep sending money out and expect people to come to work. It just doesn't work. And it's been a little frustrating for us as people trying to run manufacturing companies. But the Bureau of Labor Statistics actually just reported a couple of days ago that 4.3 million left the workforce in August of this year. That raises the overall open jobs in the US right now to 10.4 million. That's staggering. And that's some huge challenges for the nation as a whole, but for manufacturing specifically. But what we're doing to try to attract and retain people, we've got people working on this, day in, day out. We're really trying to promote Excel as a great place to work. It's kind of one of the best kept secrets north of Wichita. We actually employ a little over 700 there. There's a lot of great things going on there. It's a bigger company than you think. We're building about 100,000 mowers out of there a year. So it's a big operation, to say the least. And so we're really working with vocational and high schools and various areas to try to get kids interested in manufacturing. We do tours on a regular basis. I actually go to the universities and speak on occasion. We work with Heston, we work with Bethel, we work with the schools in Wichita. I'm actually on board of the trustees at Fringe University, working with them, trying to do some things there. But the futures in the kids that are sitting in the classrooms today, and we have to get out there and work with them and develop that. We're also moving from less temps. We got a lot more temps than we did 6 months ago, but we're really moving more to permanence. And this is a big major model change, trying to address making sure we have the people that we need. Talent development and continuing education, that's huge. This is something as a company we have not done as well a job as we should have. And a lot of it's because of all the challenges we've had. But I'm excited with Stanley Black & Decker coming in, because I know this is a big centerpiece of what they're doing. And this is something that we're going to work on as we move forward. We are putting automation in the factory. That is really allowing us to relocate people in the factory and have them do other things, which is pretty big. And then we also work with our support personnel that aren't directly involved daily in the manufacturing of the product. We're allowing them to work from home, especially the supply chain folks. They're on the phone 8, 9 o'clock at night, dealing with suppliers, trying to get parts in. So we've tried to make it more flexible, because it's really, really tough. The one thing I would say, and this kind of ties in with what Dave talked about, that, the leadership at Excel, and I think they do a really good job with this, is really being empathetic to where the employees are at and what's going on. We have really pulled back on overtime here as far as the weekends, because we were just about to burn out everybody. And there's a point that people won't come to work, they'll quit, they'll go other places, and we have to find that balance. I'll tell you, we're sold out for the next 10 months. So it's very tough on us right now, because we got people waiting on product. And of course, there's a lot of people in this room probably feeling the same pain. We got good problems, but we're all trying to figure out what that all looks like. So let's talk a little bit about, when I think about our opportunities and what we're doing as a company, really, I've been trying to think about how we're transforming the business for the future. Even though we're going through these tough times, what do we need to be doing to stay competitive and to really meet the challenges we've got going on? I've mentioned 2 or 3 times about investing in advanced technologies and automation in the factory. I just can't understate this. I think that's the future of manufacturing. I believe we can be as competitive in the US as anybody else in the world. If we use our heads, we're smart enough, we can do this. And I've seen some incredible things, even at Excel, what we're doing there in the world we're in. But you walk into bigger companies, it's just amazing what's going on with automation, robotics, all those kind of things. But we've been investing in robotic welding, which has been huge. The tooling, the guys just been doing a great job there. We're not doing tack welding on some of the lines now. They're just getting snapped into tooling, and the quality's better, the output's better, and the cost, of course, are lower. We're also working on a cobot welder, And we're learning a lot from that. That's a cool little piece of equipment. And I think that's something we're going to expand in as we go forward. We lately just put two 12K lasers in. We went from 8K to 12K, which jumped our capacity, I think about 40%. And what we're doing, and the fiber optic laser it's so fast, it's just incredible. You're just amazed it can cut that through that plate of material as quick as it can. And it does it when there's not much debris in the air or anything like that. In fact, that factory is so clean. I would encourage any of you want to come up and take a tour. We would be more than happy to walk you through there. There's just some really, really cool stuff going on there. We've also invested in our paint system. We've got machine metrics that we're doing a lot of tracking. David talked about having the data. That's really critical, trying to figure out what you're going to do. But I mentioned pursuing more vertical integration, insourcing that gives us more control, reduces our costs. I can go on about that. We're also working to implement enterprise-wide integrated processes, really trying to make things seamless. We've had a lot of manual things. Our system is very antiquated there. So we've been working on that through this, because we just realized we got to do more with less, more so than we ever had before. Lean's a big part of that. And that's something that we're driving as an organization. We also are tied to speed to market. In our industry, if you're last, you might as well not even go there. Our products, you got to be in the market. So speed to market's pretty important. So we've been really working on that. We were actually the first electric mower that came out years ago. We were probably way ahead of our time. So us entering back in, we learned a lot. It really gave us a lot of things. But point I'm making there is you always got to think about 5 years out where things are going with your competitors and the products and things you're doing. The supply chain and your people and how you're developing them is all critical, and all ties back into the strategic planning that we do. And then finally, more agility in the supply chain, able to respond quicker. I talked about that we're working to bring things back. Basically, this hemisphere is what we're trying to do. But honestly, there's things that we can't bring back. Nobody does it here anymore. It's pretty frustrating. The tires you see on a mower, the rubber, it's not done in the United States. You have to get it over in Asia. And I could go down the list. You hear about chips. Finally, we're going to build a chip factory in the United States. I don't understand strategically why we let this all out of the country, but we have. And it's all because of the dollar. And I think we're finding out this is not good as a nation. And hopefully this is the wake-up call that we all needed. And we've all been guilty of whatever we've done in our past. And I've asked for forgiveness on a few things, that I've done or made decisions I had to make. But at the same time, we have the power to change and do the things we need to do. David talked about faith. I thought he was spot on. I couldn't have made it through the last 18 months unless I knew the Lord and I lived for him. I pray about things every day. I said, Lord, to help me. That's the only way I get through it. I got a lot of responsibility, a lot of stress, but this life's temporal. We're not going to be here that long. We're a vapor, as the Bible talks about. You're not ready to go to heaven. You miss heaven, you missed it all. So all this will one day be gone. At the same time, let's make the best of it, what we're doing. Think about your people, coach them, show that you care, and do the right things, even though it's hard sometimes. So with that, it's been an honor to talk to you this morning. Look forward to visiting with some of you. Appreciate this organization and really Wichita in general. Born and raised here, been over 30 countries, but this is home to me, and I'm glad to be a part of it. Thank you.
I think you're hearing it from the heart. I have put the slide. Our next speaker is from a company that's dear to my heart. Brad White is Senior Vice President of Operations for Textron Aviation. Brent earned his Bachelor of Applied Science in Engineering Management and Electrical Engineering from Miami University and a Master's in Business Administration with a focus on finance at Wichita State. He is also a Six Sigma certified black belt. Brad started his career in 2004 as a machine operator in Ohio, followed by stints at various manufacturing companies in the area. As Brent said, he began his Cessna career in 2007 as a purchasing planner. Between 2008 and 2009, he held various roles in 3 of the other Textron divisions, returned to Cessna in late 2009, holding various management and technical positions within supply chain and operations. In 2011, he transferred to McCauley Propeller Systems in Columbus, Ohio as general manager. He returned to Wichita in 2012 to assume the role of Director of Production Control and Logistics and transition to the Director of Components Manufacturing at Pawnee facility in 2014. In 2017, he assumed the role of Vice President of Supply Chain Management before transitioning to product support as Vice President of North American Customer Service Center in 2019. Brad became Senior Vice President of Operations in 2020 and is responsible for manufacturing, quality, facilities, environmental health and safety at Textron Aviation. His organization consists of over 7,000 employees across Textron's aviation, multiple factories in North America. Brad is raised in Cleveland, Ohio, and he now lives in Wichita with his wife, Lindsay, and their 5 children. Please welcome Brad White.
All right, well, good morning. It's an honor to be here, like my colleagues. I didn't think we would have any common themes in what we talked about this morning when it comes to labor and parts. So we don't have that problem at Textron Aviation. Okay, well, that's obviously a manufacturing joke. Look, I would also just like to echo what Brent said about this community. I've been here now in Wichita for 15 years, and from some of the places that I've lived around the world, it really is a unique community when it comes to manufacturing. It's very much an intertwined community of people and of products, and our industrial areas throughout this community are really all over the place. There is no such thing as an industrial park or anything like that. We live in Wichita in the suburban area here, as an industrial city. So I personally take pride in that. So a few things, I will talk just a little bit about labor as well as parts, but I'll keep that short because I know we're dealing with that. But clearly we're all very challenged when it comes with labor. And I think if you look at the unemployment rate here in Sedgwick County in particular, it's about 4.9%, I believe, the last I looked, which is essentially where it was in 2019 prior to the COVID pandemic. So the question, as you heard earlier, is where did the workforce go? It's simply not there. I think we're seeing more of the baby boomer generation retire at a faster rate. We're also seeing some of the folks that were entering into the trade skills into manufacturing going different routes when it comes into their career paths. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But the bottom line, like us, like many other businesses, we have to hire about 1,000 operators between now and the end of 2022. For Textron Aviation and for the aerospace industry, the last 10 years has been very challenging. It's been very much a no backlog environment. And to put some of that in perspective, our XLS aircraft, which we've been building for about 20 years now, over 1,000 units, we actually just this year are selling that airplane at a price higher than what it sold in 2008 before the financial crisis. And you think about that, 12 years of not having any price increase on your product just puts an immense amount of pressure on the business. And now we're seeing a complete change of that environment where we have a backlog, like many of your businesses. Demand is very good. As I joke in operations, sales now has the easy job, operations has the hard job, because we have about a 9-month backlog. And as we look at that backlog, it does a lot of things, obviously, for efficiency for our factory, because we know what we're building. We know the configuration of the airplane. And as customers customize the interiors, we can place those materials on order in time to be able to build the product, as opposed to what we've done the last 10 years, which is build an airplane to a spec and then modify it at the last minute based on whatever the customer wanted. So it is driving some efficiency when you look at it from that perspective. But it is an interesting environment right now. It's growing. And as you heard from the previous 2 speakers, we are being a little bit cautious about this growth, trying to make sure that we are growing and maintain that backlog, but also maybe not overbuilding and putting ourselves back into a position that we were the last 10 years. So the workforce is a key element really. At Textron Aviation, like many aerospace companies, our average employee age for the factory floor is 51 years old. And on average, we know that our employees, they retire around 60, 61 from our data. But they're eligible around 55, and specifically if they've been with the company for 15 years or more, they're pension eligible at that age. So over the course of the next decade, 50% of our workforce is going to turn over. And that's a huge challenge as we look forward into the future. And we're doing a lot of different things to address that, which I'll speak to. So labor, clearly a big issue for all of us in manufacturing across the country, and it's going to force us to do things a little bit differently. And we're all trying to find those solutions. I'll talk just briefly on parts as well. So absolutely, we too are seeing inflation. Actually, I just saw yesterday the Social Security cost of living adjustment for 2022 is 5.9%. And it hasn't been more than 2%, I think, the last 10 years. So we're starting to see some of this hyperinflation that's going to affect wages, which is going to affect the recruiting and the talent, but also just the material itself. And an airplane, as Brent knows very well, about 70% of the cost is in the material, actually. Specifically, engines and avionics make up most of that. So material inflation is a huge piece to our business, as it is to many of yours. But the supply chains are constrained. And it's very interesting for aerospace because if you go back to 2018, supply chains were constrained then as well. But I would say it was more of aluminum and raw materials that were the issue. And that was, in my opinion, because Boeing and Airbus were producing all-time volumes. Boeing had $100 billion of revenue in 2018. It was a record for the company. And they were consuming all the raw material compared to a smaller general aviation manufacturer like us. We're not buying nearly as much. But now it's different. The raw material is not so much of an issue, although I think it will be in the future as commercial aerospace returns. We're seeing more of an issue with components. So pumps, valve, motors, those types of things. And a lot of that is driven by the global supply chain constraints, but also the labor shortage that we're all dealing with. Our suppliers are dealing with the same thing. Some research that I've done has showed that a lot of the global logistic constraints are due to, during the pandemic, many of the container ships were used to distribute supplies and the vaccine and healthcare materials around the world. And those containers went to third world countries and never basically returned back into the system. So that's why if any of you have been in the Los Angeles area at night, if you look out towards the Pacific Ocean, you'll see 40 freight container ships just waiting for days on end, trying to get into the port. It's extremely congested. So that's having an impact as well. And from what we're forecasting, we don't expect that really to get better for probably at least a full year before we start to see some relief. So some of the things that we're trying to do, like you heard before, is some vertical integration, especially in aerospace being kind of a low volume, high mix operation. It's not that we don't use suppliers, but we also want to have the capability to do it if we get into a bind and we have a shortage. So we have a great supply chain, a lot here in Kansas. We have about 100 suppliers within a 60-mile radius of our factory here in Kansas that we use a lot, and it helps simplify the logistics because it's close. But we also have a lot of capability to do things ourselves internally, and we're continuing to focus on that as an initiative. But talk a little bit about manufacturing. For us, really manufacturing and advancement there starts with engineering design, because if you don't design the airplane using the new manufacturing technologies, you won't be able to leverage them. So we work closely with our engineers. We have a cross-functional team where our manufacturing group actually sits in the same building as the design engineers. And we go through routine reviews as a new airplane is being designed to look at dimensional management, to look at manufacturability, and that goes into quality. It also goes into safety and ergonomics of how the product will be built and what changes can be made from the beginning so that when that product hits the production line, that design is done appropriately. And some of the things that we've really kind of explored further and utilizing more now, first on the machining side is a term many may have heard called monolithic machining, which basically is taking what used to be an assembly of many different components and machining it as one piece out of a billet. And the new machining technologies, because the spindle speeds are faster and the material removal rates are better, are allowing for something that used to be more expensive doing a machining to actually be less expensive now as a single piece. And if you look at an airplane, we have a lot of this. So if you go inside of a wing and you look at the ribs, which really are the skeleton or the frame of the structure, we used to take a sheet metal part and then we would either bond or fasten different angles and extrusions onto it to make it as strong as necessary. And now we can do that as a single machined aluminum structure, which makes assembly a lot more efficient. We're also looking into corrosion resistant materials as customers become kind of more demanding, and actually what more so I would say in Europe, with changes in how airports are treating icing due to environmental concerns. They're using different chemicals and materials, which are great for the environment, but highly corrosive to metal. And it's creating a new challenge for us to try to deal with for our customers. So we're looking at how can we make the aircraft more resistant to corrosion, which involves using different types of materials, a lot of stainless materials in particular. And those are great. They're very highly corrosive. They have the strength characteristics that are necessary, but they are very difficult to machine. So we're working through those challenges, finding the right cutting technologies to do some of these stainless steel alloys that are now being designed into the airplane. The other thing I would say as we design the aircraft, and this is more as technology evolves and also as customers expect more out of the airplane, everything is becoming more based on electronics and more computer controllers, more PC boards that go into the aircraft, more capabilities specifically in the interior for what the customer can do as they're flying. And it's fantastic and it's excellent technology, but it's changing the way we build the airplane. It's also changing how the workforce has to do diagnostics with those systems. And an example I'll give is I was working with an operator troubleshooting a hydraulic problem on our airplanes, an actuator basically that was controlling the flaps on the wings. And 20 years ago, and really even probably just 5 years ago, when you have a hydraulic problem, the first thing you go look at is the actuators and the hydraulic lines themselves. But this problem, although it seemed hydraulic, was not hydraulic. It was electronic. It was the controller that was telling the hydraulic system when to turn on, turn off. And it's just a totally different way of how you go about troubleshooting compared to what we've done in the past. So that's something, when it comes to design. The other piece, just quickly I'd mention, is part traceability. As the standards for quality become higher and higher, and it's requiring more traceability down to a component level of what part goes on what airplane, what raw material batch did it come from, what operator installed it, when was it installed, and how many other components were in that same order. And we're now looking at laser engraving technologies that can actually engrave part numbers, order numbers, barcodes right onto the part itself, so that we have that traceability and we can use that information and date it back to where that origin was for that part. So all that's kind of starts in the design. So then as we get into fabrication, I talked about the monolithic machines, but also that the NC programming technologies are advancing quite well and making things more efficient. Some examples of this are using harmonics to decide what the cut depth should be for a machine and how fast the speed should be. So based on kind of like a big tuning fork, you hit it with a hammer, and you understand the harmonic frequencies from that vibration. And there's now computer technology that will tell you, hey, for this size of tool, here's how deep the cut should be, and here's what the recommended speed is for the spindle to remove the most material efficiently as possible. So trying to use some of these new technologies to optimize our machining cells. And we've seen great results. We've seen about 35% reduction in machine times, which allows us, of course, to be more efficient and to put more work on those cells. Other things I would mention is the use of vision systems and inspection. The camera technology now is so good, you can actually teach a camera what to look for, press a button, and it'll tell you if you have a good part or not. So we're working on some of that. And we're also managing some of the new environmental responsibilities that we have, as chemicals from the past are being replaced with items that are more environmentally friendly. So that requires us to requalify those materials, make sure that they're working as well. An example is cleaning our parts. We used to use a chemical called TCE, and now the environmental regulations for that are tighter, and we're looking for different chemicals to clean grease and things off the parts. So as we move into assembly, some of the things I mentioned here, like you heard before, is just automation. And for us and for our industry, it's flexible automation because we are a low volume, high mix operation. So we're constantly evaluating the return on investment of $1 million robot that's going to do something, but only 50 times a year, because some of our aircraft, that's about the volume. So we're trying to find ways to make that robot flexible where it can do a lot of different things. And also coupling that with, I'll call it small wins, semi-automated drills and tools that can be placed in operators' hands. And a good example of this is there are now pneumatic driven drills that will take all the force out of the drill if you're drilling into aluminum, for example, and do it, by the press of a button. And we can put 20, 30 of those tools in our employees' hands and have them go drill things, and all of a sudden they're 20, 30% faster, not to mention the ergonomic improvement by not having to have that force on your shoulder as you're drilling those holes. So looking at technology kind of at all levels, a full automated system, but also down to kind of a specific task that can be leveraged across many different areas of building the airplane. The other area we're looking at is a term you're probably all familiar with, the digital thread, the digital factory, the smart factory concept, but essentially trying to make more information available to our people building the product so they can see 3D graphic drawings, they can see work instructions that are standardized that call out safety alerts or call out quality alerts real time as they're building the product. So trying to put a lot of that information down on the floor, integrating it with our engineering, and then using it furthermore to do smart scheduling. So actually running algorithms to look at lead times of components in our ERP system, as well as looking at what the customer needs internally for the factory, and basically giving the operator the exact list of what they should go do that optimizes the overall flow through the factory. Because they shouldn't have to figure that out. We should be able to just give that to them is the philosophy. So we're working a lot on that concept. In aerospace in particular, in our business, the people, like you've heard before, are everything. It's a highly technical product. Our workforce is very skilled and they know what they're doing. But they are, as I said, the demographics show that 50% is going to turn over here in the next decade. So we're putting a big emphasis on standard work instructions and cross-training, and trying to put in place tools that give our supervisors the information to say, of all the employees on your team, who has done this task, how many times have they done it, and who's done it the most efficiently, so that you can actually make work assignments appropriately. But furthermore, you can use that information to see where you're not cross-trained, where you may have one employee that knows that job and you have not done a good enough job of teaching others that can be the backup when somebody takes vacation. So we're focusing on those cross-training tools. And when it comes to the tools themselves, we are integrating PLCs and sensors into the tools so that we can help mistake-proof the build. And an example of this is when we put a wing into the wing framing jig, we have to pin up all the different locations of the frame prior to actually doing the build. And the tool is now smart enough to tell the operator if all those pins are properly located. And we integrate that then with the power tools so that we cut off the power supply where they can't do any drilling or anything until everything is pinned properly to mistake-proof that build. And there's a lot more in this area that we can continue to advance. And then lastly, I would just mention in our completions area, once the airplane's built and it's time to do paint and interiors and flight testing, the A&P mechanic field is shrinking. And A&P mechanics are key for the aerospace industry. They are the bread and butter of making the airplane work and delivering it to the customer and maintaining it out in the field. And they are leaving the industry at about a 3-to-1 rate at which they are entering the industry. So we're working on some apprenticeship programs and partnerships with Wichita State Tech University, as well as others around the country, to help find folks that can get into this field to backfill that supply. The last area I'd mention in our completions area is just the ergonomics of painting an airplane. For those that are familiar with the process, you got to sand the whole airplane and by hand for the most part. It's very hard on the shoulders. It's a lot of cumulative trauma when it comes to injury risk. We're trying to find ways to use better tools and sanders that can actually just kind of adhere to the airplane and go up and down automatically without a person. We're looking at these ergonomic suits. I don't know what they're called in particular, but that helps. They're zero gravity suits for your shoulders that operators can wear to help take that force off of the job. And then the paint schemes. White paint actually on airplanes makes a lot of sense because not because it's easier to paint, but also because it is actually lighter than pigment paint and color paints. And depending on the size of the airplane, it can be 50 pounds or so lighter. But customers now are wanting more, I would say, specific paint designs, which are requiring us to be artists when it comes to painting an airplane. And then we do have folks that can lay something out by hand and put all the stripes on it and make whatever you want. We've done some really neat paint jobs, Captain America down the side of an airplane and some crazy ones, tiger stripes. But we now have a laser projection system where you can put the graphics in, and then it will actually lay out the laser onto the airplane and allow the masker to just follow the line to make that design on the airplane. So we still need our artists. We love them, but we're trying to find ways where we can teach anybody, how to do this type of technique. So that's a quick rundown on some of the things we're working on at Textron Aviation. It's a privilege to be here. I love this show. I think it's a great representation of what our community really does. And yes, it's smaller than MTS up in Chicago, but I would say it almost offers the same representation of all the different products and services that manufacturing has. So appreciate everyone's involvement in the show, and it's a privilege to be here.
We've had a great row of speakers. They do walk the talk. They know what's going on, and they have good people skills. Now it's your turn. We're going to open the floor up for questions. So anybody want to start out? Oh, come on. All right. I'm going to ask Brent. I've known Brent for a long time, but as supply chain has brought back materials to the United States and manufacturing, how are we going to compete from a standpoint of getting the right kind of people and the jobs to do that work that haven't been here for a long time?
Ron, we've known each other a long time. That's a hard question. I think it comes down to, you got to have a plan. You got to have a strategic plan. You got to work with the state, universities, but more importantly, a company's got to be committed. This is what they're going to do. Working with a supplier, or it's not impossible. I mean, I read a book called Freedom's Forge. It was about the United States standing up the ward footing in the late 30s into the 40s. Actually, that book helped me a lot, what we're dealing with now. It'd be a book I would read if you could. It's very interesting. But some of the things they did was the government partnered with industry, and then they went and got the right people and developed the talents and brought all the people together. And they did it with various industries and things like that. Ron, I don't know if I really got an answer to that question because it's so broad, but
It's one you can't really answer, but you did a
Right.
very good job.
yeah, I appreciate that.
David, I know you've spent a lot of time on the shop floor with your employees and working through products. I've seen you develop technology. From your perspective, what was the payback in your mind, the biggest payback of the technology you applied to your factory floor?
It's a great question. I mean, there's a financial aspect, but I think the biggest payback is it becomes a snowball effect, right? So when people see that you're solving problems and they see that there's innovation in one particular area, they will spread. That spreads. I mean, it's something that you'll see not only on the factory floor, but you start hearing conversations about, we constantly have these issues with this engineering that comes in, or how do we better communicate when we have these types of changes that are coming from the customer, or, we've got this particular issue with this particular supplier. So let's go engage that individual company, and how do we work through whatever that particular issue might be. So for me, it's not just the one-time hit, which is obviously a great thing from an efficiency and productivity standpoint, but it's something that spreads and continually feeds on itself. People like to be competitive. They like to have purpose. They like to have, mission to go after. And I think innovation is a great way to be able to harness that capability.
Thank you. Anybody else there? I have a question back here.
I just want to hear a comment. I'm from St. Louis area. About how efficient do you think the school system is with regard to training? I got lost about, I was gonna have a phrase for that. Basically, what they learn in school compared to how much you have to train on the job. If you had to put a percentage on it, or put maybe actual words, it's like they didn't learn anything in school at the 100% training. There's nothing they learned in school. I have to retrain them all. And it really comes down to is my feeling is that the whole entire school system has to, from the colleges, stuff that engineering, has lost it, totally disconnected from manufacturing. It's a totally disconnected what you're teaching in high school and what we do on a job. When you bring these kids in, and like they don't know anything, And like I'm on a committee in the St. Louis area, and I think the one out of 50 companies, everyone is like, teach them how to do it. So that's, to that basic, simple thing. I'd like to hear your comment about in Wichita, what you guys are doing here, business involved in the school system. There seems to be a lot of resistance from the school system to have businesses involved. It's like silence, right? It's like to hear what you have to comment about what your needs are.
That's a great comment. A couple things I can offer there. So at Textron Aviation here with the Wichita school system in particular, we actually have a program where we bring in a number of the faculty about 2 or 3 times a year. We show them the factories and we spend a whole day going through topics that we'd like to see that they continue to teach. So that's one thing that we've done, I think, collaboratively, partnering with the school district themselves. The second piece there is we've actually started internships for high school students. And it's funny because I actually came across a young gentleman the other day who started as an intern in high school and then did internships for his 4 years in college. And he came out of college and he was fully vested in our 401k program. He had his 5 years before he even started, really. But that is something that I think we're doing more of, is trying to get people involved into the workforce at an earlier age. But I think what you're speaking to, we do see the challenges there for sure. And I've heard different articles, and I've read articles on this. I've heard actually Joe Rogan speak to this. We're in an era right now where you really don't have to know anything to figure everything out, if you think about it, because you get out your phone and you got to figure out how to measure something. I mean, it does it for you. And I think we have to go back to some of the mechanics a little bit to teach, how things work. Shop class, for example, is not a requirement anymore, and sometimes not even taught in some schools. And it wasn't about, being a great woodwork person. It was really just about understanding the fundamentals of how some of that works. And I think, we have to look at that. The other element, and this is kind of my opinion at this point, is the university track over the last 15, 20 years, has gone kind of almost too much that direction, where there's a great career to be had, not going through the universities, going through a trade school, getting a technical degree. And I think as a whole society, we may have overemphasized that a little bit in the last 20 years. And I'm not saying that we don't need that. We need that as well. But we also need folks that can go down that vocational school track, and we can show that you can have a great life, a great career, and a prosperous, compensation by taking that. And no debt, exactly, right? So we've done some of that. We've started apprenticeship programs as well, where we will actually pay for the apprentice to work about 20 hours a week. And then we partner with, right now it's mostly Wichita State Tech. And they will do 20 credit hours, or sorry, a whole 2-year program, an associate's degree basically for that track. So we've done it with maintenance technicians. We've done it with our tooling designers, and we're now looking to try to do it for machinists next. So I think we're gonna have to do more of these apprenticeship programs, early internships, and keep working with our educators in the community. My kids would probably like that, but and the other piece that I think we also have to be aware of is the damage that the pandemic has done on students the last few years. I mean, we're now in the third school year that it's been affected by the COVID pandemic, and I think that's going to be devastating for kids that are developing those years.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of the same things he talked about. We work with Heston schools quite a bit. We actually had Heston College over yesterday. A freshman class walked through the facility and gave them a tour and talked to them about manufacturing. One of the things that we're seeing is, do they have a work ethic? That's the first step. Also, manufacturing isn't easy. One of the things I talk to new hires about is you got to get used to being on your feet all day and make sure you got good shoes, and just giving them a little coaching. And I had one of them stop me a few months later and said, that really helped me because I was really struggling because of the transition they were having to make. A lot of them too, we put tempering systems in the facility, which has helped as far as taking humidity out. But a lot of these kids are sitting in air conditioning and stuff. And man, when they have to start working during the summertime and the heat, they find out what work's really about. But to me, attitude and really the work ethic is really the two key things. And I'm not sure if you can train that other than when they're younger, and their parents have a lot to do with that. And we see the kids that are working on farms and different things. They do really well, coming in and working and doing that. So anyway, that would the only thing I would add to what Brad said. Thanks.
David, any thoughts?
Yeah, from our perspective, I mean, one of the things I think is important is to plug in where you can, right? So Wilbur Middle School, we have participated with the robotics program and helped sponsor that program over the last 3 or 4 years. And, you can't solve all the problems, but if you can have an impact in some way, whether it be through the tours or having a sponsorship, then anywhere that you can plug in, I think that we should be doing it. So taking some of that accountability on ourselves as well.
And I'll say from my perspective, from the Wichita Manufacturing Association, I'm the education chair. We have been in touch with the local schools all the way from K up through 12 and college, working with the faculty, giving them the opportunity, as Brad said, to get out on the factory floor, understand what that work floor is like so they can educate the children. I think one of the biggest challenges that I see is we got to convince the parents of those kids that manufacturing is a viable opportunity for them. Brad mentioned, we talked about when I was going to college, if you didn't have a college degree, you'd never make it. Well, that's not true in today's world, the manufacturing world. Working with the gentlemen that are here in the Workforce Alliance, WMA partnership with Workforce Alliance to work this issue, providing tours, providing the funds for buses to take students to the factories, and not the big aircraft, but the smaller companies, just so they get an understanding of the broad capability of manufacturing. So from our perspective, WMA has been a driving force, at least in my opinion, in helping this transition of the education process. We got a long ways to go. Any other questions? That was an excellent one. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to understand if you guys are growing, have grown, how have you dealt with safety and quality? You got the people, the environment.
Anybody want to jump in on that one?
It's a great question, great topic. So we've done a number of things here. The first is we've looked at just the data showing when we are growing, what happens to our quality and our safety metrics. And what we have found through that analysis is that it's not so much the growth. What it really is when people get into a new role that they're not familiar with. Most of our injuries actually occur with an employee that's taken on a new role in their first 12 months on a job. And what was interesting in our finding is it could have been an employee who worked at our business for 30 years. But if they ended up taking a different assignment in an area that they weren't as familiar with, the odds of them being injured were significantly higher just because of making that transition. So that's now kind of given us insight to how do we control safety whenever we have movement. We've done a number of things here. The first is we actually worked with our union in our contract negotiation and lengthened the transfer period that any employee per the contract was allowed to use. They used to be able to go look at new openings internally after 6 months. And we showed some of this data and said, not only is it not efficient, it's a safety issue, it's a quality issue. So that's one thing. And then on the quality front, a lot of it is us in management and our manufacturing engineering looking at the operator is a piece of the equation, as we all know, but what can we do to make that piece smaller? I mean, we should, to make them successful, how can we provide better work instructions? How can we provide better tooling? How can we listen to them too? A lot of times, some of the quality issues we find are simply because so-and-so is trying to fill a gap and we never knew about it, and we could provide a better tool or a better design. So it's kind of just down and dirty, but we've gone and we just do Kaizens. We identify one area per week, basically through the whole factory, and we go listen to people about safety and quality ideas that they have, and it's given us a whole list of projects to go work on. But it was started with that data showing that the quality risk is higher and the safety risk is higher when people are moving into new areas.
Well, a few years back, we were growing so fast. Honestly, our safety and quality wasn't where it needed to be. It got out of control. I'll just be frank. But the team, to their credit, really took this on. We've turned it. And some of the things we did, at least on the safety side, we put some things in place where we're getting feedback from the folks. And we've invested a lot of money and addressed a lot of equipment issues, different things like that. So before the pandemic, we'd kind of hit a plateau where we weren't seeing much of an improvement. And pandemic, unfortunately, our numbers on safety probably deteriorated just a little bit. But what we're doing now is we're really trying to address culture. And that's a big thing once you get down, because our numbers had come down quite a bit. And it gets harder as the numbers come down. And it wasn't equipment and it wasn't, different things like that. It was really, it's a person thinking about what they do before they do it. And are they getting in a hurry? Are they following the process? Those kind of things. And so we're actually engaging with a third party that help us lay this out. Safe Start's name of the company. And we're working with them to really address the cultural aspect of the factory and getting people to think about it. But it's been tough with the people we're bringing in, the turnover we've seen, with people. That does not help. From a quality perspective, I mentioned we got out of hand. We had a lot of paint issues a few years back. We spent $2.5 million on our paint system, addressed a lot of things there over the last over 2 years. Haven't had any more paint issues in the field. Quality overall has dramatically improved, and we restructured a lot of things we were doing in the factory. And also the mantra of quality first, schedule second was a huge mindset shift, because everybody was worried about, I got to build this many this day, or I got to work Saturday. It was one of those deals. And I just told them, I said, no, we build the premium product. It's got to be right. It's got to go out like it's supposed to. And we want our customers happy. So there's just, I guess my point in all this, we're really trying to drive culture there and really getting people to think about what they're doing and putting processes and systems around that.
David, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I think one thing just to consider is your reaction as a leadership team to when problems are found, either in the quality side or on the safety side, also can really set a tone. So if you're appreciative, whether it's a painful issue or not, and you help them understand that you want to recognize those problems and then you go fix it, that'll make a huge difference. So I think leadership's reaction is pretty important.
Well, that concludes our presentation today. I'd like to personally thank the three gentlemen for coming in, taking time out of their busy schedules to come in and share some real solid, from the gut facts and figures about what their business is like as we go into 2022. We do have a gift for you, but unfortunately supply chain broke down. So I will make sure that you all three get your gift. Ethan, you want to close?
was just gonna come up and joke about supply chain as I'm texting and where are the keeper of the planes? But thank you everyone for coming in today early and enjoying breakfast with us. I hope you were able to connect and reflect with these gentlemen. There's some fine leaders and they're hitting some great points. So I hope you can take that home and make your manufacturing operation even better. With that, we have another WMA event today from 3 to 6 p.m. We're having a short reception up here on the second floor for drinks and appetizers. So I encourage you, if you're walking the WITS show today and you have time this afternoon, come up and network with some other manufacturers. But otherwise, WMA, we have our next tour at Cayman Composites coming up in November. So hope you can join us there and see that facility in operation. But with that, thank you again to our sponsors, KMS and Fairloy, and we'll see everybody next time.